boys and girls, and welcome to the concession stand here on the KB Radio Network. I am your host, Kevin Reed, and this is the review of the new George Clooney, Brad Pitt team up film, Wolves, which is directed by John Watts. This is a action comedy written and directed by John Watts, who a lot of us know as the director of the last three Spider-Man films that starred Tobey Maguire was in one of them, but starring Tom Holland for the MCU. And now we get this very different film from John Watts. And this film, alongside George Clooney and Brad Pitt, we also get Amy Ryan and Austin Abrams. This film follows two professional fixers who are forced to work together on a job despite their preference to operate as lone wolves. And so this was a film that caught my attention when I heard George Clooney and Brad Pitt were going to be in the film together again. You know, going back to Oceans 11, 12, 13 through 28, we have been blessed with George Clooney and Brad Pitt's just magnetic chemistry they have with one another. And it's no secret they're best friends off screen, so it only is only common sense that it's going to translate on screen as well. So I was excited for that. John Watts, who impressed me beyond impressions with those last three Spider-Man films. I thought he did an excellent job with that. At one point, he was signed on to direct the new Fantastic Four film, but he left that project to focus on films like this and the Skeleton Crew for Star Wars, which is coming out, I think, at the end of this year on Disney Plus. And I think he has another project. I can't think of it on top of my head, but in any event, he decided to kind of part from the Spider-Man universe, which is understandable. He's been a part of the Spider-Man lore for the last, better part of 10 years, since the first Spider-Man Homecoming came out. And so it was time to do something different. And to team up with Brad Pitt and George Clooney for this film was very different. I'm a huge fan of films like this, about fixers or cleaners and things of that nature. I love getting down into the blue collar work of criminal enterprises. You know what I'm saying? I like watching stuff like that. You know, that is levels to this. It isn't just crime bosses. There's levels. You know, there's an upper class, middle class, and lower class when it comes to criminal empires. And fixers, where would they fall? I guess you could say they fall in the lower class because they got to come in and clean up the mess. You know, those are the ones that wipe the slate clean for everybody, give the alibis, and clean up the crime scenes before there is a crime scene. And so, yeah, they're the lower class. And Brad Pitt and George Clooney play fixers in this film. And this was a unique take on this story. It was at first, when I first saw the trailer, it had a couple of jokes in it, but I thought this was going to be a more serious film, and it wasn't. It was, and not in a bad way. This was a comedy, but at the same time, it didn't lose touch of the gravity of the situation that was going on with this story. Of course, I might as well get it out the way now. Brad Pitt and George Clooney, perfect chemistry, worked excellent off of each other. Love watching that. For anything else, this movie gets a passing grade for that. You know, just to watch those two play off of one another on screen. It's one of these things that I actually had this feeling in the middle of watching Wolves. I was like, man, I wish they would have did more films together. You know, aside from the ocean films, just different type of films together, team up movies and played off of that. I thought they would have been cool. And just like this, this is different from the oceans films, but they still have that same kind of chemistry, but different in a source to those two characters that we know from the Oceans franchise. But their chemistry is top notch, and uh, to watch that throughout this film was a joy. While we on the acting here, I got to give a shout out to Austin Abrams. Austin Abrams, who plays the kid in this film, was amazing. I really loved his character to the point. To the point, he stole the movie. He actually, and this is him being in scenes with George Clooney and Brad Pitt in the same room. He outdid them. He outshined them, and you know, you'll never be mistaken to say that George Clooney or Brad Pitt are the upper echelons in acting. You know, they're good. They're movie stars. They're not what you would define as actors, even though they both are Academy Award winners. But you know, you never look at them as actors. You look at them as movie stars, you know, because they have the looks, they have the charisma. That's what they are. But in any event, Austin Abrams, who I never heard of until this film, and I'm praying that we get a lot more from him after this. He has a monologue, I would say, in the middle of this film when it was him, George Clooney, and Brad Pitt in this hotel room, and he's running down this story, and there's one long take, and he's running down this, just spewing out this monologue for about 5 minutes straight, and it was a thing of beauty. And he has this manic, nervous speech pattern, you know, and he does it throughout the film. That's his character. But in this particular scene, when he just completely unleashed this monologue, where he went through his day, because they asked him, you know, what happened. And so he started off with, "Well, I woke up," and so Brad Pitt character, and I'm not spoiling it, you know, it's just one little part. He's like, "What? No, I don't want to hear all that. I just want to know what happened at this such and such thing." And he was like, "Well, you asked me what happened. I got to start off where it all started at." So he started with, he woke up, he got up, he got it. It was just the way it was written and acted. That scene, that monologue was, it was such a joy to watch, and it really topped off my tank, being as though this was in the middle of the movie, to finish the rest of this film. Because to be 100% honest, and that's why you're listening to this review, to get an honest opinion, the second half of this film kind of falls apart. It didn't really land in a lot of areas. It began really strong. This was, I mean, I was having a great time until midway through the second act of this film, and it kind of slowed down, and it got kind of not boring, but definitely not fun either. You know, it was just something happening. You know, it was just happening to get to the climax. That's what it felt like. It was just a filler for about 35 minutes, and it kind of lost me. If the characters weren't introduced the way they were, and the story wasn't moving along the way it was early on, I would have checked out. I honestly would have checked out. So they did a good job at the beginning to hook you, because you're hooked. And then once it gets to this little negative zone right before the climax of the film, you're so hooked in, you're willing to go through that. But it did kind of make up for itself towards the end. The very end of the film was a very cute homage, I felt, to an old classic film that is it's a bit derivative, but you know, I get it. You know, you have these two movie stars, and the little shout out, or the homage that they're giving this out to, it contains two movie stars of their time. They were the Brad Pitt and George Clooney of their respective era. And so it made sense why they did it the way they did, and it kind of ended on that type of note, and that made up for a lot of it. But it just ended like that, you know. But it was still interesting and original in sorts. Not so much because, like I said, it was a clear ripoff of that classic film without spoiling anything. But was it was cool though. It was cool to see. We haven't seen it done this way in a long time. The cinematography. I wanted to speak on that for a sec. Really, really beautiful cinematography in this film. I mean, it looked gorgeous. This film was set primarily at night, and it just looked beautiful, man. New York looked great. And it wasn't these grandiose shots, you know, these sweeping skyscraper shots, you know. This was grounded shots, and where you can see the streets, you can see the rain, you can see the snow, you can see the lights glistening off of the water puddles, and everything just looked great. You know, the color schemes in this awesome, looked beautiful. The direction was good. John Watts didn't let me down there. Like I said, other than the fact that it kind of went off the rails there for a little while. At the end of Act 2, the beginning of Act 3, but it did pick back up. But for a portion there, you was kind of like, where are we going with this? Uh, but it did get back on track. I thought this was a really good film. Is it a film that will be in my top 10 at the end of the year? Probably not. Probably not. But I felt it was a watchable film. It was a good time. It was funny at parts. I mean, really funny at parts, to be honest with you. I actually laughed out loud on a couple of scenes. So that's a good sign. It's real peculiar. Now, I went into this with a preconceived notion because Apple TV Plus, who produced this film, didn't release this in theaters, which was weird to me. Well, they did for like a weekend or 1 week, and then it went straight to Apple TV Plus, the streaming service. And that kind of gave me pause because I'm like, why didn't they? I mean, this movie stars Brad Pitt and George Clooney. Why is this going straight to streaming? That's weird to me. These are two gigantic movie stars in their own right. But yeah, I was kind of nervous about that. And after seeing the film, it's right there on the line with me. It skirts the line between a theatrical film and a streaming film. And it leans a little heavy into the theatrical to me because it does look theatrical in parts, you know. But this isn't a big film. It isn't like it is a summer event film, you know. But a change of pace type film, I think it fits right in that category. Like I said, this is an enjoyable film. That's why I give Wolves a letter grade of a B minus. Yeah, it was really good. I mean, it was just solid to me. It wasn't great, you know, but it wasn't average either. You know, it's just slightly above average to me. I really enjoyed it. Enjoyed the performances. Enjoyed the few action sequences that it does have in it. Yeah, it's a good little time, and it was funny at parts as well. But that's just my humble opinion about Wolves. I would love to know what is yours if you have checked it out on Apple TV Plus. Did you enjoy it? If you haven't checked it out, are you planning on checking it out? I would love to know. Email the show, kbradiopodcast@gmail.com. You can also search for this show on all social media platforms. Just search for the KB Radio Network, as well as YouTube. Subscribe to the KB Radio Network channel and like this video if you don't mind. Also, don't forget about the 5 stars, the reviews, and sharing this show if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, wherever you are currently listening to the concession stand here on the KB Radio Network. Everybody, thank you for joining me for this review of the George Clooney Brad Pitt action comedy Wolves. Want you all to know that I love you. Continue to love everyone, and until we speak again, you all be blessed.